Are you the Judean People's Front? F*** off. What? Judean People's Front? Well, the People's Front of Judea. The only people we hate more than the Romans. The f***ing Judean People's Front. Yeah.
Damn People's Judean Front. Who hasn't had enough of them? I don't know. When do you start talking nuclear weapons? When does that talk actually start? The Middle East. They never change, do they? When I say they never change, I mean like their clothing, their undergarments and things like that. They never freshen up. They haven't freshened up, really, I think, ever. It's never happened. You can't just say in a long time. It hasn't just been a long time. Not a lot of freshening going on there. More mayhem, more chaos because, the jihad and everything, that's problematic. Did you see the rally in Michigan? The Democrats had a rally in Michigan. I don't think they like the Jews. You see this? Out of Michigan, it's a group of Muslims, also known as Democrats, in Michigan, and they had a meeting. They had some pretty wacky things to say. When I say wacky, I mean we should build a wall around it, and there should be towers, guard posts, spotlights, things like that. But I'll get to that, and it's the Democrats. They applaud this because they are similarly anti-American and un-American. There's an election coming up, and the Democrats hope to make matters worse, don't they? They vote for Democrats is a vote for more murder. Vote for Democrats is a vote for more carjacking. Yay, more illegal alien gang members marauding through your children's schools and all that implies. So we got that. But that's only scratching the surface because today the International Longshoremen's Association, the ILA, you have to have an abbreviation. It's got to be abbreviatable. And the ILA, the International Longshoremen, is 45,000 of the longshoremen have walked off the job. They walked off. There's a strike going on. And this shouldn't be a problem because the news media, they'll probably try to find a way to make it Trump's fault or maybe J.D. Vance because our news media is the most corrupt institution in America. Each individual member of the news media, corrupt. Extraordinary stuff. So 45,000 to 50,000 of the International Longshoremen Association members walked off the job. The clock tolled at midnight, and then they didn't show up to work this morning. I noticed they had a lot of African-American women in picket lines with signs, professionally made, union-made signs, and they're demanding the world. And what is they have T-shirts, too. If you want to fight, you've got war. You got war. Well, that's kind of incendiary language. And wait till you hear this guy who's the president of the union, of the ILA, the International Longshoremen Association. This guy really sounds like a gangster from 1950s movies. He's unbelievable. I think when he leaves the picket line, he goes to the Bada Bing. He hangs out at the Bada. He's at the Bing. It's amazing stuff. So I've got that for you. They walked off. They only want a 77% pay increase. And the powers that be, or is that the powers that is? Which is that, Michael? It's the powers that be or it's the powers that is, depending on which Democrats you're talking to. They said, well, we'll give you a 50% pay increase over the next contract, the next 6 years. 6-year contract is pretty good. I've never had a 6-year contract. Michael, have you ever had a 6-year contract? The longshoremen, they get a 6-year contract, and they've been offered a 50% pay increase, right at 50% pay increase over the course of 6 years. And plus better pensions. How's your pension looking, Michael? Your pension looking good? And of course, not only the 50% increase in wages, the better pensions, and much better health care benefits and more choices. And the union rejected that. Last night, they rejected it. All right, we'll give you 50%, right? Like 50 cent, but in a union contract. So 50% wages, increase in wages over the 6-year term of the contract, plus better pensions times 3. You multiply their pensions 3 times, and that sounds pretty good. And better health care benefits and more choices. And they said no. And then they pulled out a gun and held it. I think one guy held it to his own head. And and said, so it was right out of a Mel Brooks movie. It was completely crazy. So we've got that, and they've gone on strike, and it could cost the economy $5 billion a day, according to J.P. Morgan. But what do they know about things like this? So J.P. Morgan says cost our economy about $5 billion a day, $5 billion a day. And the gangsters running the union, and it's not the rank-and-file members of the Longshoremen's Union by any stretch of the imagination, but they do have, like Santino Corleone as the president of it's like Christopher Moltisanti, maybe. Pretty amazing stuff. And wait till you hear this guy, the president of the union. Total gangster, complete hood. And he probably should be raided by the FBI pre-dawn tomorrow morning with dogs and battering rams and helmets and body cams and all that stuff. But in the meantime, we should plan on, because there are already ships parked offshore now in, where is Baltimore or New York? They've already got a bunch of ships, a half dozen ships parked offshore. Remarkable stuff. And they're not coming in. They're just carrying medicine from China and TVs from Korea and automobiles from Europe and Asia and alcohol and wine from Europe. That could be a problem. And, you know, all they want is a 77% pay increase plus. And otherwise, you know, there's going to be a gang war. Sounds like, based on what the president of the ILA is saying, could be a shooting war, could be a gang war. And again, one guy's head already bleeding in Baltimore because the Democrats are here, and the violent Democrats, they love crime. They love crime. They really do love a lot of crime. And we have a transportation secretary. His name, you know who that is, Michael? That's Pete Buttigieg. That's Buttigieg. He took a little time off from his maternity leave, where he's been at home chest feeding, to go and to deal with the strike. No, he hasn't said a word about that. He's got nothing to say. He's just the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. It's just shipping, you know. You have shipping, you have trains, you have planes and automobiles. But Pete Buttigieg, he's off helping the Kamala Harris campaign, and he's helping Mr. Schwanze, Tim Walz, helping him prepare for the big vice presidential debate tonight, which is tonight. And it's going to be on all the television channels. Newsmax is a great place to watch it on the television. And WMAL in Washington is a great place to listen to the debate, the vice presidential debate, on the radio. If it's radio, then it's WMAL. If it's TV, then it's Newsmax. Best place to catch the debate tonight, because, you know, that's important. But Pete Buttigieg, he is doing debate prep with Tim Walz because nobody knows. But that's why. Is he a great debater? Is he great? What is he great at? Nobody knows. And we have a Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo. I think she might be with an organized crime family as well. Gina Raimondo, she was on the television on CNBC, and they asked her, hey, what about this upcoming shipping strike that could cut off half of the everything coming into the United States of America? And she said, really, I'm just here in my personal capacity, whatever that means. And she said that she is not paying attention. She's not paying attention to that. So Joe Biden is not paying attention to it. Kamala Harris is not paying attention to it. Pete Buttigieg is giving back massages to Tim Walz, little weird. And Gina Raimondo, well, I don't want to tell you what she's doing, but it also involves lubricant. That's another thing altogether. And she's not paying attention. And you better look out for your bananas, because the banana shipments are going to stop right away. So go ahead and get a bunch of green bananas and put them in your freezer, because also we have the big hurricane in the United States. And now the latest report is at least 128 people killed. At least 128 people killed. And that's not good either. Joe Biden hasn't been down there, but he took one question about it, then wandered off, bumped into a door frame and fell down. And they dragged him away by his ankles, and the news media didn't tell you about it. Pretty amazing stuff. But Joe Biden, he's not down there. He says he's going to go down there eventually. Kamala says she may go down there. But when you're a Democrat, you don't have to go down there, because the news media is looking to shave you and give you a tongue bath, a freshly shorn tongue bath for you. remarkable stuff. So 128 people dead, at least. North Carolina really got whacked big time, especially western North Carolina, and towns wiped out. You know, the place that they used in Dirty Dancing. You familiar with that? Where it's like a camp in the mountains, and it turns out that camp from the movie Dirty Dancing, it was wiped out by this hurricane. It was in western North Carolina, and that the whole complex, they call it a town actually, the town that was used in the movie Dirty Dancing was wiped out and swept away, completely swept away, and amazing stuff. Also, in North Carolina, the presidential election may be affected. They've got big problems in that 14 voting places apparently have been wiped out in 14 different locations, of course, they're permanently closed. Well, they're closed for the time being, I should say. I shouldn't say permanently, but 14 locations where you might go to cast your vote have been wiped out. And the mail-out ballots. Hey, where'd the mail-out ballots go? Because the U.S. Postal Service and lots of mayhem down there. So there's all kinds of bedlam, and it may affect the election. I'm sure the Democrats would be happy if it did, because they're the party of anarchy and chaos and looting and burning police cars and sacking and plundering and all that stuff. President Trump, for his part, he went to Valdosta, Georgia, and visited with the people and with Reverend Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham. And they've already raised tons of money, bringing in supplies, doing all kinds of stuff. He went to Valdosta, Georgia, very southern Georgia, near the Florida line. I've been to Valdosta, Georgia, and there's an Air Force base there, Moody Air Force Base. I went there, and I got to fly an F-16 one day out of Moody Air Force Base at Valdosta, Georgia. But President Trump has been there more recently. He went yesterday. He went to Valdosta, Georgia, and he's probably gone now because he has his own 757, so he can leave when he wants. It's different for him than it is for me. But remarkable stuff. And Biden and Kamala, well, they'll get there when they get there. Just shut up. And what about our transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg? He's helping Tim Walz. Just shut up. Just shut up. And remarkable stuff. I got to tell you. Also, I just mentioned being at Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia, and flying an F-16. There has been another conflict in the air. Russian fighter jets rousting and cutting off American F-16 or F-16s near Alaska, because nobody's afraid of the United States of America with Joe Biden in charge and Kamala Harris waiting in the wings. And we're going to be rolled over by every bad guy on the planet. I've been saying for many years now, only the tyrants of the world need fear the wrath of the United States of America. But if the tyrants of the world do not fear the wrath of the United States of America, then the tyrants of the world have nothing to fear. And then the tyrants of the world, you know what they do? They act up and they act out. And you know what happens then? They kill. They kill and they destroy, and wars start. Just like the war started in Ukraine when Joe Biden came in, and the war started in the Middle East when Joe Biden came in, because Iran said, well, there's nothing to worry about here. We'll do whatever we want. And Vlad the Impaler Putin said, there's nothing to be concerned about here. We'll do whatever we want. And so that's what happens when the United States is not standing watch. When the shining city on the hill goes dark, then the ages go dark and we enter a new dark age. Remarkable stuff. And again, we do have the VP debate tonight. That's great stuff. Also, I've got my best girl and I, we had a discussion last night about Benjamin Netanyahu. And we've got an idea. It's actually my best girl's idea, and I want to share it with you. It's a great idea regarding the Middle East and Benjamin Netanyahu. And Jimmy Carter turns 100 years old today. Former President Jimmy Carter turns 100 years old today. Now, what does that have to do with Joe Biden and Thomas Jefferson? Joe Biden and Thomas Jefferson. I'll explain when we come back. We are at 888-630-9625. Yeah, I've got Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Netanyahu for you coming up. Let us go to the telephones, Michael. Jasmine at the helm today at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Justin calling from Wilmington, North Carolina. Justin, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Welcome.
So I've been a truck driver that carries containers in and out of, state port here for like 7 years. And, I know a lot of the businesses depend on this freight. Also, we get a lot of our gasoline and fuel out of the ports. I don't know if anybody's ever considered that. So with the port shutting down, we're all going to be strangled. Maybe they'll end up paying them 77% more money, and they'll make a living wage. But all the rest of us need a 77% raise too. All the truck drivers, all the employees at every company, because our money is worthless, because the government spends us into economic slavery. National debt is economic slavery for people who work. And, we're chained to this national debt, and, we all need a raise.
Well, they jacked the prices of everything up. This could cause inflation to skyrocket again. And Wilmington, for those who aren't, nautical and transportation people like Pete Buttigieg, Wilmington, North Carolina, is one of the ports that is being struck by the Longshoremen's Union, the association. And you're absolutely right. They jacked the prices of everything up. We want a 70. Wait till you hear the gangster who runs the union. If you haven't heard him already, Justin, it's really out of a bad Hollywood script with gangsters. And you're right. Oh, right. We want 77% more, or we're going to put a gun to your head, and we're going to cut off the flow of everything into the country because we have power, and we're going to abuse it, says the president of the Longshoremen's Association, which is the union. And you're right, they got 77% more. They get the pension tripled. And yesterday they were offered a 50% pay increase over the course of 6 years, plus their pensions would be tripled, plus they would be given more choices, more options, better options on their health care. And they not only said no, but they said screw you. And so, Justin, what do you say to the Longshoremen's Union? Keep it clean. What do you say to the Longshoremen's Union?
Oh, man. I mean, I couldn't be, PG on that,
And it's not the membership.
We all need more money.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and with left-wing policies, and you're right, $35 trillion national debt that'd take 1 million years to pay off at $1 a second. And the Democrats, they're making things better. They're making everything better now. All right, a couple of points. I'm going to get into the Longshoremen's Association, the union strike at the ports from the Texas-Mexico border all the way up to the Maine-Canada border. Every port east of, the Mississippi on the ocean and the Gulf of Mexico shut down by this gangster union. And it's not the union members. I'm not an anti-union person. I don't think unions are bad. I think gangsters are bad. I think criminals are bad who shake down and put guns to the head of the American people and extort money. I think that crooks are bad. So we got that going on today. And I want to get into that with you. But I just talked about a couple of things. And one is my best girl and we were talking about the world. That's what we talk about. We talk about a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's the world. And like you, the condition of the world, which is not great. If you're doing a State of the Union address right now, the custom for the president is to say the State of the Union is strong. Well, if you said that today, you'd be lying. And Joe Biden would be happy to lie about it. I'm sure that he will, because the State of the Union is not strong. But here's the idea. Now, the Israeli Defense Force just went into Lebanon on the ground, a small number of Israeli forces, to look for the troglodytes who are slithering in and out of cracks in the earth, looking for children to murder, and because they're jihadis, But the IDF just went into Lebanon, and the Houthi, Hezbollah being funded by Iran being funded by the United States and Joe Biden and the Democrats because they're not on our side. And Kamala Harris doesn't know what month it is, just like Joe Biden. Pretty amazing stuff. The Houthis in Yemen firing missiles at Israel as well, hoping to kill as many people as they can. Also, the Houthis fired on U.S. ships, and they knocked damaged another ship, a commercial ship, and firing at U.S. ships. They also knocked down out of the sky a U.S. drone, which is a $32 million drone, a Reaper drone, an unmanned aerial vehicle, a UAV, that has many uses, largely surveillance, but it has other capabilities. So 2 more ships attacked in the Red Sea today after U.S. warships came under missile attack, and another $32 million Reaper drone was knocked out of the sky by the troglodytes. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't give a hoot. They're going to go, do whatever it is that they do. Nothing good, nothing productive, nothing that helps our country. But we have that going on. Weakness leads to war. Peace through strength. War through weakness. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, weakness. Democrat Party, weakness. Barack Obama, weakness. So we've got that going. But in any case, a strong leader, a real leader, a real world leader who stands up for civilization against the troglodytes from hell is Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's taken on the bad guys. Now, here's what we came to, and it's my best girl who came up with the idea, said, Benjamin Netanyahu ought to get the Nobel Prize, my best girl said. And I said, the Nobel Peace Prize? And she said, well, one of the Nobel, maybe for science. I said, I don't know, I think maybe the Nobel Peace Prize is the right way to go. Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize for nothing, and then for melanin levels. And then he went on to drop bombs on 8 countries, on Muslims. In all 8 countries, he was bombing Muslims. And he got the Nobel Peace Prize at home. He's got it on the wall. They gave him $1 million with the prize, too, which is pocket change compared to what Netflix and the others have given him for also doing nothing. But I think it's time to nominate Benjamin Netanyahu for the Nobel Peace Prize for taking on the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas, and in the end, Iran. I told you yesterday that there are reports out of Iran that the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has taken shelter underground in a location that he believes will be safe from a possible Israeli airstrike, missiles and or airplanes. Got him hiding underground, wiped out 30 of the top leadership of Hezbollah, wiped out a great many of the leadership of Hamas. I think that the Houthis in Yemen are next. And killing these people, sadly, is a move toward peace, tragically, but it is nonetheless. So I think I hereby nominate Benjamin Netanyahu for the Nobel Peace Prize for, if it's already been given out for 2024, then for 2025. Benjamin Netanyahu saving the world Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's an excellent idea. Now, here is my best girl started this, and then we got it going. There's another thing going on today. I talked about it yesterday, but today is the 100th birthday of Jimmy Carter. It's Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday. That means Jimmy Carter is 100 years old today, as you might imagine. It's pretty simple math when you look at it like that. So Jimmy Carter's birthday, 100 years old. And God bless him, Jimmy Carter. Poor Jimmy Carter. But Jimmy Carter was born, when he was born, 100 years ago, which would be 1924. His date of birth was closer to the death of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, who you may know both died on the same day, on the 4th of July, in 1826. Then Jimmy Carter's date of birth in 1924 was closer to 1826 than his birthday is today. All right? That was 98 years from 1826 until 1924 when Jimmy Carter was born in 1924. then, and now 100 years since he was born, 1924 until 2024. That is, and that's not a slam on Jimmy Carter of any kind, but that is another commentary. I like to point this stuff out from time to time, how young this country is, how young the great experiment is in self-governance in a constitutional republic. We're a very youthful country, a very young country. And it's amazing that the Jimmy Carter date of birth is closer to the date of death for Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, founding fathers, who both died in 1826. Nation born 1776, of course, as any child can tell you, except Democrats tell you. What do they tell you? What do they go, the 1609 Project? What a bunch of rectal apertures these people are. Absolutely amazing stuff. So we've got that going, and that's fun. Jimmy Carter was born closer, the day he was born, was 98 years after the death of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, and now he's 100 years old. Isn't that amazing? That's kind of a remarkable thing. And that goes with another story that involves Joe Biden. Remember I said, what does it have to do with Thomas Jefferson and Joe Biden? You know that Joe Biden's date of birth is actually closer to the second inauguration of Abraham Lincoln. And I'm throwing a lot of math out here today, but Joe Biden is here. I've talked about this before on the radio, but Joe Biden, born 81 years ago, his date of birth was closer. There are two inaugurations in history. Joe Biden's inauguration, that's important to Joe Biden. Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration, before a Democrat shot him in the head and murdered him. And Joe Biden's date of birth was closer to Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration than it was to Joe Biden's own inauguration, and only one inauguration for him, no second inauguration for him. So those are both stories of a young country and of an old Joe Biden and an old Jimmy Carter, to be sure, bless his heart. So we got that going. That's kind of fun stuff. Now let's go to, those are just, dinner table conversation points, but remarkable things. So Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday. Happy birthday, Jimmy Carter. God bless you in spite of yourself and everything you did as president and all the problems that you created with the Ayatollahs being left in charge of Iran instead of the Pahlavi family. We'd be much better off, and the world would be much better off. The region would be much better off. Iran would be much better off, and the people of Iran would be much better off if only the Pahlavi family had been left in charge of Iran. All kinds of progressive ideas that they had. Let me tell you that. Let me tell you that. Ba, ba, ba. Also, did you know that in 1970, fewer than 1%, less than 1% of the American population was on government assistance? Today, that is 53%. 53% of Americans take in some kind of government assistance. All right? Isn't that amazing? And that's because Democrats want to grow the state and dependence on government. Now let's go to the big strike. Let's go to Chris Spear. Chris Spear was live this morning on the television. He is the CEO of the American Trucking Association, and he was being interviewed about the longshoremen going on strike, and he had a lot to say about it. Hey, where's Joe Biden, and where are the negotiations going on? They're like the negotiations for peace between Russia and Ukraine. There are no negotiations going on. They're like the negotiations for peace between Israel and Iran and their proxies. There are no negotiations going on. And they'll tell you somebody's somewhere in Geneva having lunch, but nothing's happening. They're lying to you because they lie all the time. But here's Chris Spear, the CEO of the American Trucking Association, on the big strike.
It's alarming. I mean, here we are. These parties have not been to the table since June. So, the president likes to say it's collective bargaining. Well, that's true if they were actually at the table. It's the job of the president and this administration to bring two parties together when they can't reach an agreement, to mediate. They're not doing that. They're encouraging this strike. By revoking the option of Taft-Hartley, you're encouraging this union to strike and shut down this economy when our southeast United States is recovering from a natural disaster.
That is a fact. And Joe Biden said he doesn't like Taft-Hartley. It would kind of force the situation, but never mind that. So the Chris Spear, CEO of the American Trucking Association, and it will shut down about half the economy and cost a great many billions and billions of dollars. Chris Spear, CEO of the American Trucking Association.
This is the worst time to have 36 ports shut down our economy. So if you're really, looking out for regular Americans, look out for the people that are digging out their communities in North Carolina, not looking at the wealthiest pay package that any union in the country has. We've heard about corporate greed. This is union greed.
You've heard about corporate greed. This is union greed, gangster greed. Chris Spear.
Just to illustrate what greed really is here, you've got six-figure salaries in this union. You've got workers, including crane operators, making over $300,000. Now, a 77% pay increase, they're over $500,000. So if you're that person down in the Southeast digging their community out of the mud, you really think they care about somebody whining about getting $500,000 a year? This is where this administration has parked this and putting everyone else in jeopardy. And this is really a lack of leadership.
One of the big fights that the union is having is over automation, which is like a dog barking at the wind. It's like arguing that the horse and buggy and the carriage whip need to stay in the inventory. Automation is taking place in Europe, even on the west coast of the United States, and certainly in China, where they can move twice as many containers per hour in a port as we can because they've automated everything. But they're opposing automation, which is to oppose modernity, to oppose progress in the name of being progressive, of course. Automation is, and I understand it's an issue, but you adapt and you overcome, as people have throughout certainly the history of the industrial age. Chris Spear.
And if you look at automation, they want to move us back into the Stone Age. I said yesterday, we may as well be moving this freight with donkey carts. I've got 12,000 trucks each day servicing boxes in New York, New Jersey. This is no small task. So Chris, this is a massive movement of freight. And we need automation. We need these workers, but we need automation to be competitive globally.
Yeah, and that's a fact, and you can't not do it, even though you may not want to. On CNBC yesterday, our Secretary of the Department of Commerce, a former governor, a Democrat, Gina Raimondo, was asked, well, what about this looming strike? Aren't you panicked?
This potential strike at the ports that's expected to take place tonight at midnight. Obviously, this is the first time since the 1970s that you would see strikes all up and down, not only the East Coast, but the Gulf ports. What would this mean for commerce in this country? What would this mean for businesses if we go into this strike? And what do you know about it?
She doesn't know anything about it. She's not paying attention.
Good morning.
Yeah.
So as you said, I'm here in my personal capacity.
No,
I would
you're
say,
not. She didn't say
look,
that.
It's not a secret that this would be, depending on how long it lasts, could be incredibly disruptive to commerce.
To commerce, yeah, and but wait, aren't you focused on it?
Where are the issues most prominent? Where have you been kind of focused and hearing on what would happen if the strike goes, let's say, longer than a week?
Again, I have not been very focused on that. I would refer you to the White House or the Transportation Secretary.
You're that's Pete Buttigieg. He's off helping Tim Walz prepare for the debate tonight. He's not on the job. And our Commerce Secretary is not on the job. She must be looking at her stock portfolio. Remarkable stuff. Well, you hear the gangster that is the head of the Longshoremen's Union. This guy's a piece of work. And I'd like to apologize. All of our lines dropped off at once. Our whole call screening program collapsed on us. We're working on reestablishing that bridge. I blame the longshoremen. Well, this could be kind of a big deal. CNN, they sleep with the people at the Democrat White House, you know. They're reporting just minutes ago, the White House on Tuesday, that's today, said the U.S. believes Iran is preparing an imminent ballistic missile attack against Israel. The United States has indications that Iran is preparing to imminently launch a ballistic missile attack against Israel. We are actively supporting defensive preparations to defend Israel against this attack. A direct military attack from Iran against Israel will carry severe consequences for Iran, a senior White House official said in a statement, but anonymously, of course, because he doesn't want to anger Iran because they're afraid. And so if Iran attacks Israel, missile attack, that could be problematic. And, you know, of course, they're enriching uranium and spinning centrifuges, and they have their underground nuclear program, just like in the movie Top Gun Maverick. Really. But so here we go. The Biden Democrat world continues to get more and more anarchic, more and more chaotic, more and more deadly, more war, more pandemonium, more strikes, more empty grocery store shelves, more gang members in your daughter's school, more war around the world. All right, not a lot of time, but let's go to the phones. Let's go, because I had to squeeze that story in. Let's go to Mike calling from North Carolina. Michael, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call. I just had a quick comment. I live in North Carolina, and the western part of our state has been completely devastated. They're finding bodies under rubble and trees and all over, and it just seems like the federal government has been MIA in this disaster. The people in western North Carolina are hurting. Communities have been wiped out. And it just seems like they could be doing a whole lot more. We have one of the largest military bases right here, and they could send more in there and do more than is being done now.
Who's the head of FEMA, Mike?
The name escapes me, but I think he was...
Yeah, the name escapes you is the key part of that answer.